So now we're going to move on to our final keynote presentation of the day from Oliver, from the founder and CEO and consultant for IAB Tech Labs. And he's going to share some key updates on digital audio, global technology standards. So I'm going to hand it over to Oliver now. Hopefully he'll make it through onto the stage in just a moment. We are going to have to drop the Q&A from this section, unfortunately, just to ensure we can keep to time. Oh, can you come in now?
Hi.
Hi, Oliver. Over to you.
Thank you. There is not much time left for introductions and all the nice parts. So that was a really inspiring presentation, and it's really difficult for me to move over to odd technology stuff now for the last couple of minutes of this session. But what we have learned so far, I guess, is a lot around the growing market, podcast, digital audio, a lot of creativity in the market, a lot of diversity, and also market development, and of course of heavy growth in this segment. And what is needed in a heavily growing segment are technology standards. I'm talking a bit about that, what my customers, so I'm a consultant, I'm running a small consultancy company, what my customer IAB Tech Lab is doing in this domain by means of technology development and making sure that podcast gets a channel which is professionalized in a technology. Where do we stand? Where do we come from? By means of digital audio, we come from a lot of heterogeneity. We come from RSS feeds, which require where you download the digital audio piece from. We are coming from a diverse distribution over platforms. So a publisher is not a publisher like it is in the internet world. A publisher is producing the content. He uploads it to a platform. The platform plays it out. Sometimes the platforms, as we all know, have their own rules. And then in between, there are podcast hosting companies. So there is a lot of complexity in this domain. And by means of measurement, that of course causes a lot of complexity as well. So there is a lack of access to client-side measurement, which we are used to from a classical internet world and from programmatic advertising. To do client-side measurement is crucial to measure reach and to measure ad performance and delivery and things like viewability, which are of course not applicable to podcasts. But there is a lot of questions in this market which are caused by the fact that it is still under development. There are some set challenges in server-side measurement. If you are into technology, you definitely know that. So you have to base your analysis on server logs. That is complex. You cannot differentiate between a play and a download. That is also threatening. And there are myriads of other complexities in server-side measurement. What we are trying to develop, what IAB Tech Lab is doing, is in our podcast measurement guidelines, is to have to follow some key principles in measurement of the heterogeneous digital audio and podcast world. So let it base on industry best practices. So there are a lot of technologies and measurement already available from the video domain, talking about Open Measurement SDK for video and also to other channels. So there are industry best practices. The industry has been jointly developing standards for measurement for years, for actually more than 10 years. We should cover both ad and podcast content measurement because that is crucial to the delivery and also to the question like how to shed light into the podcast world, which is sometimes heterogeneous over platforms. You have to support in the future, and also the future is already starting, both programmatic, so dynamic ad insertion, and embedded advertising, so native. Some people call it native advertising, but programmatic is coming. Programmatic is strongly growing. You have to provide a set of metrics and a recommended process how to audit companies and how companies can make sure that they are technically compliant. So overall, we believe that client-side measurement is the longer-term future for digital audio. What are we doing there? So what are we doing in our podcast measurement guidelines, which are constantly evolving? 4 metrics defined. Of course, the download is not a download. So what makes a download a completed download, and what makes a listener? So how long do they listen? When do they stop listening? When did they finish listening? So to create transparent metrics on that and guidelines on that one. When is an ad delivered? An ad apparently is not delivered when it's downloaded, but when it's heard. So that has to be respected in podcast measurement guidelines. And when is the client confirmed ad play taking part? So actually what happens technically between the content creator, the advertiser, the technologies between them and the platform. So what we are doing there by means of the podcast measurement guidelines is to develop a kind of recommended process, how filtering logics apply, how you can identify and aggregate unique users, unique downloads, and how you generate metrics and audit the process. What is in taking part within this year is to have more language edits for more clarity. I learn with my team. We are talking to a couple of European markets on podcast measurement, to the local entities, that on the one hand, we see globally relevant technologies. On the other hand, we see local strength in content creation, and also local players being strong in this market, also in ad sales. And we see all the local measurement institutions. So there is a strong need for cooperation, on the one hand to develop global standards, and on the other hand to implement them and adopt them into local markets with their specialties. IPv6 is a topic right now inside the podcast measurement guidelines. The filtering guidance for watch OS versus user agents, so making sure that a listener is not listening twice, at least it's not counted twice when the podcast starts on the watch and on the phone simultaneously, and to provide a number of additional podcast player recommendations. So the podcast measurement guidelines on the one hand come in hand with the podcast measurement compliance program from the Tech Lab side, which should ensure adherence to the guidelines and validates the base of principles which are being followed. This is something which affects or which is relevant to technology companies. So podcast hosting companies or companies having a holistic view on podcast production, delivery, ad sales, and services around that. And in the end, company being verified, so we really audit companies. We closely work with the companies. It's a couple of months process, taking a look at technical procedures, taking a look at technical details, taking a look at delivery and processes, making sure that the company can frequently self-audit them in the upcoming years. And in the end, you receive a compliance seal, which establishes a kind of industry trust. So what we hear from the local countries, from France, from Germany, from the UK, from Spain, Italy, and also other European countries, is there is a need for standardization. There is a need for trust and technical criteria in podcast delivery. And more companies follow this process, applying for filtering logics, applying for threshold logic. So those are some of the technical details we are looking into in the auditing process. Calculate uniques clearly, and of course, in the end, generate metrics. More companies also in Europe, the latest catch, so to speak, the latest company having been certified in Europe is ULab Media, which is a startup company strongly growing from Germany. But you see a couple of other international players, Acast working in almost every country in Europe, and others not. So this is heavily growing since we experience a high demand for standardization, a high demand for reliability created through technical standards in this creative world where you see thousands of new podcasts every year, even more probably. So what next? What we are doing on is broadening this, of course. We are talking to a lot of countries, a lot of companies in these countries, and also to the local institutions. And there are a couple of other technical initiatives which are ongoing. So DAAST, which is the digital audio ad serving template, another Tech Lab standard, has been merged into VAST 4.1. I mentioned that. So videos, ad serving technologies offer all the convenience in measurement. They have been under development for 10 years. So there is a logic to push forward towards VAS, the video ad serving standard. Open measurement is an initiative which we will roll out through every channel which is emerging. And in the end, ads.text guidance. So to make sure that brand safety in programmatic and brand suitability can be measured, can be identified, that there are tools for that. Is also a thread which goes towards digital audio, which in the end goes into OpenRTB naturally. So thank you. That was too quick, probably. I'm happy to take like exactly one question because the time is up. I'm sorry for this brevity, but anyway, you will get the slides and reach out for questions to these email address later if you have some. Thank you.
Thank you. And then I think Alexandra is going to pop in just to say a couple of quick words.
Yes. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. So thank you, Oliver, for your presentation. So it was supposed to be a little chat, but I'm going to transform it as to say that as a closing remark. I have in fact three closing remarks. The first one is about cookieless world, because you are aware about the removal of the third-party cookies in 2023 by Google Chrome, and also the decrease of IFA. And so the focus on that is the alternative for the digital audio, because we are aware about the work on about REARC, about the taxonomy, etc. And like a video, audio will have to benefit of that in order to keep growing in terms of revenue and enjoying and taking part of the contextual targeting and so on. Also about OpenRTB update. Yes, in the slide, Oliver talked about audio, as you can see, audio can request image, text, media for album, etc., etc. And also Dast merge into Vast things, okay? So the idea, I think we need to work on audio to maybe merge audio with video objects. Keep in mind, audio was part of OpenRTB in 2016. So I mean, there is a need of refresh in order to move on, because we have now podcast, streaming, radio, and so on. And like video, audio needs to be at the same level. And then my third part is about privacy. Yes, because as you can see, to identifying, to make the measurement, to tracking the user, etc., we need IP address, user agent, and so on. And also about the cookie, IFA, etc. But even if there are a lot of subscription services, we need also to talk about and move on about the TCF, about that, because TCF is part of display advertising, about video advertising. And of course, for the GDPR restriction, TCF has also to be part at the same level in audio digital.
Thanks very much, Alexandra. Great to hear from you there. Alex, obviously the IAB, your technical director, coming in just to say some of his viewpoints on that. So thank you very much for that.